He screamed for my credit card at 8:04 a.m. No good morning, no coffee, no eye contact. Just rage, raw and entitled, firing down the hallway like a warning shot. Where the hell is your wallet? I didn't flinch, not this time. Not after last night. I stood at the sink, water running, toothbrush still foaming in my mouth. My heart didn't race. It used to, months ago. But something about this morning felt different. Colder. Cleaner. Like my body already knew. This was going to be the last time. He stormed in, eyes wild, shirtless and barefoot. "I asked you something," he snapped, slamming his fist against the doorframe. "You're not going to start with your attitude today, are you?" His voice cracked, with fury and fear, because he could feel it too. The shift. I wiped my mouth, turned off the faucet, and finally looked at him. "No," I said calmly. "Not today." He blinked, thrown off by my stillness, by the absence of my usual scramble to make peace. I'd always been the one to de-escalate, to apologize, to hand over whatever he needed to keep the morning quiet. But not today. Today, I was done being the credit line to his chaos. 3 years of financial abuse, masked as temporary help. 3 years of begging me for cards, passwords, transfers, of blaming me when the lights got shut off, when the car got repossessed, when the rent was late, and every time I paid. I covered. I justified. I told myself he was just struggling. That it would pass. That love meant sacrifice. But sacrifice had turned into silence, into bruises you don't see, into overdrafts and overdoses of shame. I walked past him, cool and quiet, and grabbed my phone from the nightstand. He followed me, like a storm. "You gonna ignore me now?" he spat. "You think you're better than me?" I didn't answer. I was already logging into my bank app. By 8:16 a.m., I'd made the first transfer. By 9:03, I canceled the card. By 10:45, I was packing a small bag, essentials only, and by noon, I had drained the account and locked the front gate behind me, because survival doesn't always look like running. Sometimes it looks like locking the door behind the man who taught you to fear morning light. It didn't start like this. No one ever thinks they're walking into a cage when it's decorated with compliments. Brandon was charming at first, disarmingly so. He talked about ambition, second chances, and the people who never believed in him. I wanted to be different. He moved in after 6 months, said he'd been kicked out of his place, that his roommate was toxic. I offered him my couch, then my bed, then my credit card, just to get back on his feet. He never left. And slowly, neither did the debt. At first, it was little things. A gas bill, groceries, Uber rides he'd promised to pay back on Friday. But Friday never came. Then came the big stuff: car insurance, rent, emergency bail. "Just one more time," he'd say. And I believed him. Every time. He had dreams. Big ones. Starting a business. Launching a brand. Music, maybe. A podcast. Something disruptive. I believed in those dreams more than he did. I paid for domain names, headshots, equipment he never opened. And every time he failed to follow through, it was someone else's fault. Never his. When I got promoted at work, he didn't congratulate me. He looked at my raise and said, "Must be nice not to have student loans." I laughed at the time, but now I know that wasn't envy. That was resentment, festered and quiet. My family saw it first. My sister Lena pulled me aside during a dinner and said, "He's draining you, financially, emotionally." I got defensive. Said he was just figuring it out. That she didn't understand his trauma, that he needed me. What he needed was access. He never hit me. Not with fists. But his voice could bruise. He'd yell over dinner. Call me selfish when I said no. Sulk for days if I questioned a charge on the joint card. I stopped asking questions. It wasn't worth the fallout. I stopped going out with friends. He'd accuse me of cheating. He'd track my location, say it was just to feel safe. I gave up passwords, pins, pieces of myself. It didn't feel like control at first. It felt like compromise. But compromise without reciprocity is captivity. The house changed too. My home became his fortress. He rearranged the furniture, changed the Wi-Fi. Our place, he called it, but it was never ours. It was mine, bought with my salary, maintained with my sanity, and every morning started with, fear, what mood would he be in? What would he demand? How much would it cost me today? The first time he yelled at me in public, it was over an iced coffee. I got the order wrong. Almond instead of oat. He snapped, loud enough for the barista to glance over. Do you ever listen? He hissed. I laughed nervously, apologized. He pouted the whole ride home. That was the moment I should have left. But instead, I told myself he was stressed, that it was just a bad day. I made excuses until excuses became my second language. I turned red flags into rose petals, rearranging my dignity to fit inside his temper. He hated when I dressed up. If I wore heels, he asked who I was trying to impress. If I wore lipstick, he rolled his eyes. Why are you trying so hard? He'd sneer. Eventually, I stopped trying. I stopped feeling beautiful in my own skin. He isolated me slowly, subtly. Said my friends were bad influences, that they didn't get us. I started missing birthdays, canceling plans, lying to the people who once knew every corner of my heart. I didn't realize I was disappearing until I was nearly gone. The manipulation came in cycles. He'd blow up over something small, money, dishes, me breathing too loud. Then came the apology, the soft voice, the guilt. You know I had a rough childhood. I just want to feel safe. I'd nod, hold him, absorb the storm. Gaslighting became a daily routine. He'd say things, deny them minutes later. He told me I was overreacting, that I was too emotional, that I twisted things. Eventually, I stopped trusting my memory. I started journaling just to hold on to reality. He weaponized intimacy, withheld affection when I disagreed, made sex transactional, a reward for submission, a tool to silence my questions. He'd pull away for days, then act like nothing happened. Like I was the one who created the distance. Every bill had my name on it. Every loan, every lease, every liability. And still, he made me feel guilty when I reminded him. You think money makes you better than me? He'd snap. No. I just wanted partnership. But he only saw power. He'd threatened to leave whenever I stood my ground. Packed a bag once, stood by the door for hours. I begged him to stay. That's when I realized. He didn't want to go. He wanted to see how far I'd bend. I bent until I broke, until my voice was a whisper, until the woman I used to be was a stranger in the mirror. And still, he asked for more. It started with a bang, his fist slamming the counter, the sound ricocheting through the kitchen like a gunshot. Where's your damn credit card? He shouted. Not asked, not pleaded, demanded, like he was entitled to it, like it was his, by right. I stood frozen, toothbrush in hand, suds dripping down my chin. It was barely 8:00 a.m. and already I was being screamed at for not surrendering fast enough. I hadn't even finished brushing my teeth before the humiliation began. He towered in the doorway, shirtless, veins pulsing at his temple. Are you trying to piss me off? He said, stepping closer. You hiding it from me now? I didn't answer. because I knew what came next. If I argued, he'd explode. If I complied, I'd disappear a little more. But something cracked in me that morning, something that had been splintering for months. The woman who used to flinch, who used to rush to calm him down, who used to apologize before understanding what went wrong. She didn't show up this time. She was done. He slammed the kitchen drawer shut when he didn't find it, swore under his breath. "You think you're better than me now?" he spat. "You think just because you make more money you can treat me like shit?" The irony nearly made me laugh. I turned slowly, looked him in the eye. "I think I'm done," I said. The words came out softer than I expected. But they were heavy, and true, and final. He blinked, confused, like the game had changed and no one told him. "What did you say?" I said, "I'm done." He scoffed. "You're not going anywhere." He was right. In that moment, I wasn't. I wasn't running. I wasn't screaming. I wasn't packing a suitcase in a panic. I was standing still, grounded in a clarity that didn't need permission. I walked past him, calm, focused. He followed, spitting insults. "Ungrateful bitch." "After everything I've done." I said nothing, because he hadn't done anything. I had done it all. I built the life. I paid the bills. I kept the peace while he burned the house. He threw one last line as I walked, into the bedroom. "You'll come crawling back." But this wasn't a movie. This wasn't a breakup line. This was a man watching the foundation he fed on finally cave in. And me, I was already reaching for my phone, logging into the bank, writing, the beginning of my own ending. After the confrontation, the house felt strangely calm, like the eye of a hurricane. Brandon paced in the living room, cursing under his breath, while I closed the bedroom door and leaned against it. My heart thudded, not from fear, but from finality. I opened the banking app with shaky hands. My name on every account, every card. I had made this life work. I had funded our survival. Now, I would fund my freedom. I started transferring balances, closing lines, pulling everything into my name alone. Every click felt like reclaiming breath. I watched the numbers shift on the screen and thought, this is what it feels like to escape without running. He banged on the door once. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer, because he didn't deserve answers anymore. Only consequences. I packed slowly. Essentials only. Clothes, documents, laptop, charger. The necklace from my sister. The letter my mom wrote me before. She passed. The rest, he could keep. Let him sit in the wreckage he thought he controlled. By 10:45 a.m., my money was safe. My bag was zipped. I stood at the door watching him from down the hall. He looked confused, like a man who knew something had shifted but didn't know what, or how much he'd lost already. I stepped outside and walked toward the front gate. He followed me, spewing more threats. "You're making a mistake. No one else will put up with you. You think you're some kind of boss bitch now?" I turned, looked him dead in the eye. "No, I think I'm free." Then I locked the gate, clicked the bolt shut. He tried to open it, pulled hard, realized it was sealed from my side. "Open the damn gate!" he shouted. Neighbors peeked through curtains. I didn't flinch. I slid the key into my pocket and walked, back inside. He stood there, caged by his own entitlement. And me? I stood in the doorway of a home that was finally mine again. Not because I paid for it, but because I had taken it back. He kept yelling, but I had finally gone quiet. Not with fear, but with power. After the door closed, I sat in the silence and let reality settle like dust after a storm. The gate was locked. My bank was secured. But my heart my mind, still needed answers. Closure doesn't come from escape alone. It comes from naming what really happened. I pulled out an old notebook, one I hadn't touched in months. Inside were pages of dates, charges, passwords, login codes, my quiet rebellion. I had been tracking everything. Not because I planned to leave, but because some part of me had always known I'd need a record. The evidence was overwhelming. Thousands spent in my name. My credit card used for weed, video games, crypto scams, transactions at 3 a.m. that he called investments. Cash App transfers labeled gas to people I'd never met. It wasn't just abuse. It was theft in slow motion. I called Lena. "It's done," I said. I drained the account, locked the gate. She didn't ask for context. She just exhaled and said, "I've been waiting 3 years to hear those words." And that's when I started to cry. Not because I was sad, but because I was seen. We talked for an hour. She reminded me of all the things I'd forgotten. How I used to laugh more, dress brighter, dream bigger. "You started shrinking to survive," she said, "and now you're stretching again." I looked through old emails. Ones where Brandon begged for extensions, where I lied to landlords, banks, employers to cover for him. I read messages where I apologized for his behavior, to friends, coworkers, even my own therapist. I had bent myself into invisibility. I made a list of what was mine: the house, the bills, the accounts, the car, my name, my credit, my sweat. He had contributed nothing but chaos, and still claimed ownership. It was time to revoke his access. To every inch of my life, I filed a police report. Not to press charges, yet, but to have documentation, to reclaim the narrative. Detective Jules listened carefully, took notes, nodded in all the right places. "You did the right thing," she said. "People like him count on silence." I took screenshots, saved files, printed everything. Not to shame him, but to protect myself. Because I knew he'd come back. Not out of love, but habit. Parasites always return to the last place they fed. But this time, I'd built a firewall, and every boundary I wrote down was a promise to myself I intended to keep. Brandon came back the next morning. Of course he did. Entitled men always do. He banged on the front gate like it owed him something, yelled my name like I was supposed to forget everything the moment he decided to remember me. I watched him from the upstairs window, coffee in hand, heart steady. He looked ridiculous, shirt wrinkled, eyes wild, pacing like a man locked out of his own life. But this life, this house, this account, it was never his, just borrowed time. He shouted lies. "She's crazy. I paid for that couch. She's nothing without me." I turned up the music. Nina Simone, loud and defiant, let the lyrics drown out his tantrum. Because this wasn't pain, it was a man realizing his grip was gone. Didn't call the cops. Not yet. I wanted him to feel what silence tasted like when it came from me. By noon, he left, slammed his car door, peeled away like a child denied dessert. That was the last time he showed up in person. From then on, it was burner texts, fake emails, desperate apologies. I archived everyone. I sent him a single message: "Do not contact me again. I've filed the report. This gate will stay locked. No insults, no rage, just truth. Sharp, final, documented." Then I called a locksmith, reinforced the locks, installed cameras, called the electric company and changed every account. I wasn't just cutting him off. I was erasing his fingerprints from my life. I posted a photo that night, nothing flashy. Just a cup of tea, a clean table, a caption. "Peace is the most expensive thing I've ever purchased. Worth every penny." People noticed. Friends messaged. You look lighter. What changed? I didn't share the details, because justice isn't always about telling the story. Sometimes, it's about rewriting your own ending and letting them wonder how you did it. I went to the bank in person, sat with a representative and recited every detail. Closed old cards, reissued new ones, created an account that no one else could touch. Not again. Not ever. That night, I slept with the windows open. No fear, just air. Because vengeance didn't look like revenge. It looked like restoration. It took time for the silence to feel safe. At first, the quiet felt like absence, like something was missing. But slowly, I realized the chaos had been the intruder. Peace wasn't the void. It was the return. I started waking up before my alarm. Made breakfast just for me. No more screaming, no more slammed doors. Just the soft click of the kettle, the hum of a new beginning. My mornings became sacred, mine in a way they had never been before. I redecorated the house, painted the living room a warm, defiant shade of clay, bought plants, opened the windows, let sunlight replace shadow. I was no longer surviving inside these walls. I was thriving, breathing again. I took the job offer I'd put off for 2 years, the one he said would be too demanding. Turns out, I could handle pressure. What I couldn't handle was being handled. And now, I walk into meetings like I own the building. Because I own myself, I started seeing friends again. Laughed without checking my phone. Went on hikes. Listened to music loud in the car. Every moment was a stitch in the fabric of the woman I was becoming. Stronger, wiser, softer in ways that mattered. I told Lena everything. Every charge, every lie, every moment I'd buried. She listened without interruption. Then she hugged me and said, "He took so much, but look at what he couldn't touch." And I cried, not from pain, but from release. I built a new budget, a new wardrobe, a new playlist, and a new rule. No more projects. No more men I have to fix, carry, or fund. If you can't stand beside me, you don't get to stand at all. The locksmith came by to finish installing the keypad. He looked at the reinforced gate and said, "You expecting trouble?" I smiled. "No," I said. "I'm just done inviting. I sleep better now. Deeper. Dreamless. Because healing doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, 'You're safe.'" One afternoon, I walked past the mirror and barely recognized the reflection. Not because I looked different, but because I looked whole. And I whispered to her, "You did it. You left. You won." Because yes, he screamed for my credit card at 8 a.m. But by noon, I had drained the account, locked the gate, and opened the door to myself.